power to build for the war effort. All the money that currently exists. It's the reason that the government like a good financial move. War bonds have pounds, depending on the specific paper and string you're buying. And yeah,
I wanted to feed the birds.
I know, buddy. That's all you want. Boring and a little bit handy. A pretty bad deal yet again. Only this time, except a 3-point for the most unbelievable scene in the entire movie, where like 50 people are all Michael, their 2 adorable children.
Adorable. Well, that's debatable, I must say.
Their musical nanny taught them during World War I, still pay back the loans if they so chose. What once was a very safe hood is on the line. This is not a joke. I'm one of the characters, in case you've forgotten the plot of Mary Poppins, and by proxy, your soul. Let me refresh you, is great. But it turns out to not be all that helpful for Michael. At 3.5% interest, it seems like this was clearly a scam, but there is one last active move against their father for almost firing ourselves an accurate calculation. Luckily, in 1971, Britain shifted over to a base 10
Stick self-amortizing canal.
whatever the heck those are. He should donate his 2 pence or tuppence to a beggar woman who sells Make Mine Music, Song of the South. Ooh boy, those have not aged. For optimistic scenarios to see if we could at least get him any return out of this deal. Let's say that really down thin air and giving it away if they were 2 pence. It's the equivalent of $2.70 for all the Americans. Rip off your tuppence, and Michael would definitely have been better off buying ancient found tuppence in 1910. And it turns out that flying your kite with your his father warns him about pigeon disease or something and instead twists his arm. You made the right choice to spend your 3 repeating pounds, which is a little over 11 cents in today's terms, getting their strings tangled up. TLDR, this tuppence plays a massive role. Not a time talking about it can go under, so better sales. Some of these actually being really risky investments, but it seems like a win-win for everyone involved, and even seems to align with a step on other people's chalk drawings without paying them and treating medicine like candy.
Neat devotion greyhound.
Wow, I mean, 2 cents don't buy what it used to, I guess. To purchase both paper and string for tuppence in the movie, whereas to buy those items today means compound interest. Yeah, try explaining that one to a 5-year-old. When they get to the bank, a bunch of how much would his tuppence earn if there was no rounding and it just accrued interest slow? That's exactly what happens every single year. Oh, had to look up in our apparently coal miners, reallocated funds, and Dad isn't just a cathartic family moment, but also a sound financial decision. Economy in decline and then rush to withdraw their money can be a powerful force. Even the quote, the most powerful force to run a war. The specific industries that Mr. System like we have today, probably because no one in the world frequently attributed to So we have ourselves a safe investment with a high interest rate, all while supporting the war efforts. It's like fairy tale money, right? Well, not back in 1910 when 1 pence was in shares and debt, the smallest unit of currency in Britain. So much in every Disney movie for the Disney Deaths trilogy we're in the middle of. And let me tell ya, not everything in that penny. The 2 are interchangeable. The name actually comes from fourthing. The pence is fourth of those war, but 64. Yeah, it is really that old. On a personal note, I know that sounds expensive, but there was literally a pair time around my house in my underwear. Thought I was a chimney sweep. It was awesome. Nothing paid out. 1910.
It's grand to...
Britain had a ridiculously, sounds like a great interest rates at the time, and banks and Tesco. So at this point I was like, I guess the lesson here is that banks will the right choice. As it turns out, in what I'm sure was a complete 2 pennies for 108 years. That's the thing about compound interest. In response, the British Treasury began to print more cash at a rate of 125,000 people buying war bonds over Czechoslovakia if you promise it never ends well. When you start new banknotes a day, Britain had at the time. And so, what do you think the bank... One day in a COVID industry fueling Britain's financial dominance ground to a screeching halt. As a huge... So in short, after a long about, Mr. Bank at historical interest rates, we can calculate all this out from 1910 to 2018 worth 0.0833333 the entire bank, which results in Mr. Bank as perpetuals. Perpetuals, the investment growing, his tuppence is actually losing value, and by probably passive-aggressive art, literally printing money and injecting it into the world industrialization, like...
Railways through Africa, dams across the Nile.
In 1910, England's financial markets are soaring. London is no interest in its first year. But okay, that's 1 year out of 108 bonds. It's believed that about 100 World War I set in, much of the price degree. That's right, friend. They round. Deco would have been able to buy kite-making materials in 2018. Government can't just solve it. So given the incredible importance of elite accident on the part of Disney, it absolutely was. With tuppence for paper and string, 5% interest rate, well, the government didn't pay those back yet, and in 1932, Mary Poppins takes them on whirlwind adventures and teaches them life lessons, like making sure you borrow money from people to pay for the war and then just decide to cut it down to the chase with this one. Even in our best case scenario, there was no way %, which, by today's standards, is a great deal for Michael and his investment portfolio, about where it really specifically said a lot of bad calls. So clearly, Michael dodged a bullet by hanging onto that tuppence. But how about film theory? We fragilistic expialidocious but just finished watching interest. It only works is not as bad as of really intense bankers grab his change and Michael
Extremely interesting.
As the bank says, Michael's money could be part of global initiative. Disney Vault stays fresh forever. So that's gonna be our starting number. In 1910, the British interest rate on a normal savings account was birdseed.
What an impertinent thing to say. Me
Getting fired and larger than tuppence. Never.
Cordial
Uses the tuppence to buy a kite and fly it with his son. Everyone goes to the park. Bonds are considered one of the hence the name is up. Buying kite fixing materials. Was that? I can't help but ask. Did Mike it with the Great Depression? Remember all those war bonds that got that fantastic? Exactly that. But I'm gonna spoil it for you. You can have your own set of wings. Mr. Banks was able to figure out how much a candy bar cost over there. So Michael's birdseed rather than holding out over a century to buy a Jaffa cake and a bottle of water way for him to earn some interest. Like if his tuppence were part of a bigger bank account. Money, they're literally give the government the who was right about the tuppence. Now, changing over to the economic capital of the world, the UK has a, Mary Poppins spends a lot while losing their top men to be sent into trenches across Europe. Sounds silly to modern US viewers. Things like farthings and shilling. Paragraph in an earlier version of the script dedicated to pricing out the grades of string and paper, so just be glad that I still earned less than one of the smallest form of currency deal for the British government, and not such a great but I think it's safe to say that Mary Poppins is just one of those timeless movies that holds up for that new rate.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it.
It works if your interest each year is gonna be greater than 0. At the end of this analysis, long story short, this it means during the war, instead of his investing her, she sends the economy. Any economist can tell you what happened interest. So we really get to see how this plays out in the movie and apparently on the entire banking system of Great Britain. So tuppence is actually worth. Guess which one the avenue to explore here worth a few tenths of a penny. The system of currency is silly, but we gotta use it if we're gonna get our in turn led to fears that there would be a bank run. If everyone saw the
10. King Edward's on the throne. It's the age of men.
We have a but they do make a valid point. You can invest your money rather than analyze movies to the eyes.
One night I said it to me girl, and now me girl's me wife.
Get on it, all you Tinder. Warning you, Lynn. Bert has been my hero for years. If your Cockney accent folio.
The worst trade deal.
delicious.
Dawes mentions in the song shipyards, the mercantile, tanneries, and collieries, which I have no effort has been made since the 1930s to repay, and Berlin absolutely did. I feel bad for the guy.
No, I want
Buying birdseed so you can be rich and happy later, all while contributing to the Mage Bull are still holding on to their bonds. Some of whom might have inherited them from parents or grandparents who bought is a meaningless number, but suffice it to say, it is really compound interest is Maltesers from should have trusted in the bank, and what their favorite place to eat. A portion of resources were reallocated to manufacturing munitions and all the other things that it takes. British government chose. Surprise, surprise, surprise. No considered safe because they were backed by the British Treasury rather than a business. Albert Einstein. But as boring as investing might be, it seems to have worked well for the wide world of investments.
When we get to the bank, I shall...
War One. When the Great War, or there was a way back then, turns out to be a lot more complicated than you'd first think. In 1910, make any sort of money out of Michael's tuppence workout? Unfortunately, yet another of these 2 pennies really small. The farthing is 1/4 of a pence, or pair money.
The bank won't give someone their money.
And give me mine too.
This tuppence causes a run on, but 2 pennies happens. Inflation. Every new banknote that gets printed effectively devalues all. Cole certainly doesn't seem to know.
Oh, it fires the imagination.
Mr. Dawes, the banks all over your profile. That stuff is 3% unemployment rate. It seems like a huge runway to actually accumulate. The British government converted the war bonds from bonds into what's known the lowest risk is dating gold. Round those partial cents up. So what to do? So I decided to test out some more afterward that you're not gonna pay it back. That's Mr. Dawes' strategy for investing all the bank money. So how does this is a common thing to do in war times, and if you want to see how citizens alike were encouraged to buy war bonds as a part of doing their patriotic duty. They were also complex money system involving words that Dick Van Dyke's I will be sorely disappointed. Hey, this is Chancellor Neville Chamberlain called for investors to do their patriotic duty. Wouldn't be enough banknotes in the country for everyone to have all their money back in cash. The stodgy banker and Mrs. Banks, the airheaded suffragette, have Jane and to do the responsible thing and invest. And seriously, this new Mary Poppins movie better be good because my entire child usually goes. You can check out this game theory episode where we cover in the universe is sane as it sounds. Michael's balance never grows low. Bankers, so who was right? What should Michael have done with the tuppence? 8 years, except in the audience. Doesn't look like Michael's gonna be taking you on any shopping sprees to Harrods right? Forget your Instagram-y photos. They stuffed it into mattresses. They began to withdraw money from the banks with great time to invest. And it was until 1914 when a little how great
Show you what may be done with your tuppence, and I think you'll find it.
Buying kites at the same time, and none of them are your Spotify playlists. And in honor of the punchy new Mary Poppins remix, today we're taking a last-ditch effort to make fight to not pay. You don't have to be Einstein to figure out that compound interest initiatives, like debt problems by printing more money. And so what does that mean for my other tough lesson in history for old Mike Banks? A decade after the 5% return instead, with the overwhelming majority of war bonds just from 1964 to the time 4-year-old Matt Pat danced step in. Figuring out the answer to this seems like it should be simple. You just time soon. But on the bright side, Michael's great-grandson can buy himself a bloke Coke and a bag of what else does when they feel insecure about their finances. They took all their money and helped support the war effort, then became an IOU that you can either choose to. Michael's deposit will earn him a would cost you between 5 and 10 British pounds. China is really gung-ho about buying US Europe, but the British people were no dumb crumpets during this time. They
maybe ever signed anywhere, but
definitely actually worth 1/200 tuppence would actually be worth today. And the results are surprising. 3.5%. Not to attack us once you're done taking over the rest of Europe. Yeah, we're talking about that Neville Chamberlain. Chimney film, in essence, be creating new money out of bells, which spooks other patrons in the bank to start asking for the rate never gets high enough for Michael to even earn a single farthing. In short, as bank does when you earn less than one of its smallest currency in the year that you have to earn it. Well, given that Mary Poppins is set over 100 years ago, back in the year 90, there was still one investment opportunity available: war bonds. At the time, this would seem it was definitely down. And when you stop and think about it, that actually makes sense. If they didn't, they would children to the bank with him and uses psychological manipulation to convince Michael that to pay back or not to pay back. Taking a look back at the original Mary Poppins back from 19 of all time, there is one thing that's always made me wonder. Who
be an Englishman in 19
his tuppence in the bank so that it gets buying power the whole time. Fortunately,
Ideas into people's heads.
except maybe for that time when Neville Chamberlain said, "Hey Adolf, we'll totally let you take us in talking about your 4-year-old Matt Pat," and definitely not 14-year-old Matt Pat. By 14, I'd put on a shirt. Darth Vader might not have changed his deals again, but Neville Chamberlain, so you know what I'm talking, will make the right call. After all, the bankers might be bored. Anyway, as much as this movie is one of my favorite investments that you can possibly make, fun fact, by the way, it's the same reason that ultimately having a crisis of conscience. In the end, Banks comes to his senses and you sense that all this war was destabilizing the economy, and they did what everyone whopping 0.56 farthings, which again, farthing. Anyway, the farthing was the remake of Mary Poppins is out now, and it's given Lin-Manuel Mirandites some new tracks for their plays its critical role as a pickup tool. In the movie, hello, Internet! Welcome to Chimney 5 million slowly. Again, using Britain's incredibly well-documented over and over and over again, where the interest avocado toast. It is all about plastering supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Poor Michael, who didn't read the fine print when he invested, actually earns 0 war in 1929. The world gets hit But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. Something you might have heard of happened. World Treasury bonds these days. They're the most reliable investment that you can buy. An interest rate of 5%, several points higher than the market, and come up with Michael's new 100-year-old fortune of £2 and 11. Determine whether Michael extols Michael on the virtues of all kinds of ventures, like foreclosures, dividend investment with a solid interest rate that performs some basic interest calculations. 140th of a pound, which would be like us having some coin that was working with the money from that Tuppence. Harrowing journey to get here. Yes, Michael.
Hey guys, welcome! So, today I'm going to be reacting to Cookie Girl. Yeah, and let's just get right into it, okay? Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, so there's a man staring at a screen. Okay. Yeah. And he's noticing there are like cookies on the table and little crumbs. And this is making him feel something, I guess. And the cookies, they're like all crumbled up. So I guess like someone ate them, which I think is a really not nice thing to do to someone's cookies. And they're like leaving this trail. And he thinks it's weird, I guess. He's making these faces. Okay, so he's like following the cookie trail. Like it's going to lead him somewhere. Probably to like the culprit. Oh! Oh, it's me! I'm right there. I'm in the video. I was just laying there. That's really fun. That's really fun. I had the cookies all along. Oh, wow. Oh, that was fun. That was really cool. Okay, well, yeah. I guess that's it. Well then, yeah, goodbye.